Hey people, CzarThwomp here, and welcome to episode 56 of the Gregson 2 Resolve. Last time, we were cross-examining Fabien and Peppino, and we determined that basically the quote-unquote Inspector Gregson, who was investigating the Red-Handed League, was actually not the Inspector Gregson that we know and love. Basically, he was a fake, he was a phony, an imposter. And now we're going to get into that. This is a genuine identification book issued by Scotland Yard. It's inconceivable that someone could have stolen such an important item from the inspector. The prosecution made that assertion itself. And we also know that the inspector had made a note about the Red League in his diary for that day, which surely means that we can't divorce the two events completely.
The inconsistency known by the defense is most troubling. If it were the real Inspector Gregson whom these two red-headed gentlemen encountered, the fact that no bruising can be seen around his neck defies explanation.
But equally, if they actually encountered an imposter, how did that person come to be in possession of the real inspector's identification?
Does the defense have some plausible explanation, counsel?
The whole thing defies explanation.
It is for precisely these occasions that we keep meticulous notes in the court record, Mr. Naruto, because those are the facts, and the facts cannot lie.
No, the facts can't lie. Even when they point to something so incredible, it's almost unbelievable. Well, my lord, the true identity of the person who turned up in the park for the Red League's enrollments is revealed by information in the court record, I believe.
Good gracious!
Very tantalizing, Mr. Naruto. So why don't you help us all see whatever truth it is that you have apparently seen? Who exactly was this imposter that appeared before Mr. DeRusso and Mr. Rossi? It was an imposter. Though it seems incredible, I admit, the undeniable fact points to only one thing. Since no bruising can be seen on the victim's neck, the person who these two red-headed men took prisoner that day cannot have been Inspector Gregson. In other words, your whole argument up to now has been a waste of time. On the contrary, I haven't finished. What? There's no bruising on the victim's neck. So the question immediately posed next is, who exactly was this man in the park on Lime Street found to be carrying Inspector Gregson's identification?
See, that's it, right. We attended the same story every time. Whoever this man was, the capo dragged him in front of the pillar to the boat with the dog collar.
Mon Dieu, Peppino, I was not so harsh as you said, huh?
But who was the first imposter, eh? Who was he?
Clearly, the defense has an idea about that. About the identity of the man and these two in prison that night.
I must ask the counsel for the defense to elaborate post haste. Who did the witness encounter in the park posing as Inspector Gregson?
Iris. No, Mel Strongheart. Okay, where are you?
Take that!
Goodness me, isn't that...
One of the witnesses who was in the stand in this very courtroom earlier today. A nameless man whose only occupation appears to be peddling heresy to passerbyers. What on earth would a street seller be doing with a police inspector's identification papers? Witness, is this the man or not?
What has happened to his lip?
Ah!
See, that's a man. This a man is not for a red-headed geek eye. He's looking for the twisted lip leg, no?
Perhaps rather than making such rash claims next time, you should bite your lip instead. It seems improbable, yes, but one undeniable fact remains. During his testimony earlier, I noticed something around the man's neck. A red ring of bruising. Eh? What? The defense demands that Mr. Gossip be brought back to the stand.
Order! Bailiff, bring the aforementioned witness back to the courtroom, immediately! Well, I never! An undeniable ring of bruising indeed, and identical to that of the witness beside him. No, my God, I've always had this way. It's a birthmark, isn't it?
A birthmark, you say? I assume the reason you've been recalled to the stand has been explained to you.
Show me about the inspector again? Well, I'm telling you, you go all wrong as usual.
You're denying all knowledge of it?
Well, of course I am. Are you trying to kill me with all this nonsense, eh?
Well, at least you'll have more stories to battle back on Fresno Street, won't you? Now, we're going to need you to testify again. And you, Mr. DeRusso and Mr. Rossi, I'm sure you'll cooperate, won't you? Do we have any choice?
We are in a big trouble, I couple.
That's quite enough dialectory chatter. Proceed with the testimony.
Wait, was there dialogue appearing? Okay, I did not. Okay, I was just seeing things when the gavel was going down. Okay, revisited. The man who claimed to be an inspector that day was definitely not this man.
He's right. You think we will ever get these crowned lips, huh?
I never leave Fresno Street, alright? I've never in the Reddit League. I've all learned the word, me. I've got no kid book or nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Just look at me, eh? Does it look like a girl with the sky with a face like this? It would certainly appear that we have the wrong man.
What have I been telling you, huh? There was no need for this witness testimony. Oh.
That's right, I'm just a simple peddler, remember? Fresno Street's all I know. How can I have gone by a relations structures on navigation book, eh?
Well, yes, that's hard to explain, but...
A brief cross-examination, I think, counsel. Very brief.
Isn't there anyone in this courtroom who thinks I might be onto something?
I stand steadfast at your side, always, Mr. Naruto, until something better comes up, of course.
Cross-examination. Okay.
Hold it!
I think this is the one we want to press. So you heard of the redhead leak, had you?
You don't get that like goes with nothing, eh? Just drop business that was going on in town. I told you that this evening will have you ready to game past me. You have between us, I got sandwich to go for point.
Well, he does have a very red nose, if that counts.
Who knows?
But as you can see, my hair's got down, I hit the Reddit. And then guys, ready to shoot my punch. You won't get you standing off to the other side of my day. No, sir, not likely.
Excuse me.
Mr. DeRusso! Oui. Can I help you? Did Mr. Gauss's word just now lead you to remember something relevant, perhaps? It was the other day when I was looking for a place near the park, a small house or something. To be the headquarters of your Redhead League, yes? I visited an housing agent on Lime Street, and there I saw him. This man was paying money to the agent.
What?
Mr. Gossip, with a housing agent?
I'm in the real estate market.
He had some kind of contract in his hand, and they were clearly discussing terms.
What? No. You're mistaken, chum. I'm not a registered man, like I said before. We even taking me with someone else. Someone with the same face.
No, the cop was right. I remember it too. He was a paying man with the banknotes.
With the notes?
Like I said, that wasn't me.
I was curious as to why this man was with the dirty clothes and so much money. So I looked at the name on the papers.
And what name was written? Mr. Gossip?
Oh no, this a man, he lies. He tells you what he has no name. But in fact, the real name is Yuan. It's a better name is Gossip, I think, see?
No! I'm a man not giving information like I said. On Fresno Street, and that's it. I don't know, but like the big thing about my personal life. Indeed. It's not the intention of the court to invade the privacy of the witness. Very well, I shall respect your wishes, sir. The aforementioned name shall be redacted from all court records of the trial, so be no objection.
Objection!
I'm sorry, my lord, but the defense does object. Because the name just mentioned has a very deep significance in this case.
Goodness gracious! Do you similarly object, Prosecutor Sogi?
As it happens, my lord, that particular name has already been mentioned during today's proceedings.
Well, I never! In what capacity?
Hugh Boone, the name of the leaseholder of the room.
Let me put this very simply. The victim's body was discovered in your rented room. I suggest, sir, that you start talking.
Well, alright. I suppose that might be the case,
So your real name is Hugh Boone.
Yes, I don't like to blow your trumpet, but there's no final bellow of David's down. So I'm in a growing little room. I'm the boy in a growing little room in a falling down backstreet townhouse.
You do?
And once every 6 months I go and pay the rent to the edge on Long Street. I remember now. There were 2 vulgar redheads and last time.
If either of us is a vulgar, it's not me.
Think again, Peppino. Why didn't you bring this up before?
You didn't ask. It's like I told you already. I'm not talking about my words enough. I'm a Disney peddler as far as everyone is concerned. No fuss. You will update your testimony to include this most surprising revelation, Mr. Boone.
In very much. So the leaseholder Scotland Yard has been looking for since the body was discovered. Has been here under our noses all along. Okay. Basically, he says he has no kinfolk, but yet we found this photo in the room.
Objection!
If you have no kinfolk, as you put it, then explain why is that among the Spacebar's furnishings, we found this photograph in the room. I presume, as you've been renting the room, that this photograph belongs to you, does it not? Mr. Boone, drop the pretense, and tell the court exactly who you really are.
I don't know what you mean. I'm a peddler. I can tell you so. You really don't need to bother with me. Please, just leave me alone.
As the man says, leave it alone. Whatever the truth is about this man's life, it has no bearing on this case. Because it's simply not possible that he impersonated Inspector Gregson.
Objection!
How can you be so sure? Just look at the man. No amount of disguise can ever hide those unmistakable features.
Objection!
But what if we were to look at this the other way around? What do you mean?
Yes, counsel. What do you mean?
Well, there's no denying that Mr. Boone's lip is very prominent indeed. But consider the possibility that his prominent lip is in of itself part of an elaborate disguise.
Hey,
Hiding that prominent feature, in other words, revealing his true face, would make an utterly impenetrable disguise. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Hugh Boone?
good witness. Are you saying the truth on this court?
If that's a disguise, then underneath it, his true identity must be...
Yes, that's right. There's really only one person it could be. My lord, the defense believes it can reveal Mr. Boone's true identity to the court.
No, please, no. Very well, then, counsel. What is the true identity of this peddler who goes by simply the name of Gossip?
Take that!
Your real name is actually Mr. Vigil, isn't it? Mr. Daily Vigil.
I don't recall that name, Counsel. Who is this Mr. Vigil?
It's a name I encountered yesterday, my lord. It has to do with a certain client of Mr. Herlock Sholmes. A young gentleman came to the detective, asking him to locate her missing husband. The woman in this photograph, in fact. This is Mrs. Vigil. What? From what I understand, you haven't returned home since the night before the inspector was found dead. But of course, on that night, you were being held captive by the two red-headed league men. And last night, you were put up by the prosecution service in preparation for testifying in this trial. Because we've been led to believe that you, Miss Venus, and Mr. Sandwich were all homeless. Being important witnesses in this case, we needed to know where we could find you, of course. And that explains why you've not only been unable to return home, but also unable to contact your wife, who's been beside herself with worry, waiting for you at the Vigil residence.
No, you just hired me. I don't have the first idea.
What I'm talking about, really? It's simple enough matter to confirm my suspicions. All we have to do is pull off that disguise.
No, please. Merlin, bring soap, a sponge, and a washbowl at once. Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi, you will restrain the witness. Oui, my lord.
See, my lord?
Ah! No! Stop! Get off! Nate! Well, we are now seeing your true features, I presume. And somehow your outfit just miraculously changed.
Lift your head, sir, so the court can see your face.
It would appear that the defense counsel's assertion was entirely correct. This has all been a very elaborate deception. So, witness, tell the court, have you seen this man before?
Hey, I don't believe it, but...
See, that is another question. This is the inspector we saw in the park.
Extraordinary!
On the day of the Redhead League enrollment, the man claiming to be the Inspector Gregson who appeared before Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi in the park was you disguised as the inspector, or rather, was you posing as the inspector in no disguise at all. Mr. Vigil was formerly employed as the chief warder at Barclay Prison.
The chief warder? Then your career had promise. Why? You would quite possibly have become the future governor of the prison. What on earth have you been doing peddling tattle-tattle on Fresno Street?
Well, it's been 10 years since Mr. Vigil worked at the prison. 10 years? I'm really dreadfully sorry about all of this. Yes, it's true. I am Daily Vigil. And you were the chief warder at Barclay Prison 10 years ago. So where did Mr. Hugh Boone come from? Boone is the other me. It's a name I invented. You see, I took a serum that made me into two people. By day, I am Daily Vigil, but by night, I am Hugh Boone. Now imagine the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde parody. Mr. Vigil and Mr. Boone.
Well, evidently there's a great deal under the surface here.
I'll explain everything. I'll tell you just how wretched my life has become. As you say, it was 10 years ago now that my employment as Barclay's chief warder came to an end. Having left the prison service, I searched for some new occupation by which to earn a wage. But times were hard in London, and I found no suitable engagements at all. In desperation one day, I turned my hand at selling wares on Fresno Street. But your wife appears to know nothing of this. She still maintains that you are the chief warder at Barclay Prison. I was utterly determined my wife should not know my failings, which is why I've never told her. I opened an account at the bank under the name of Hugh Boone, and I rented the cheapest room I could find on Fresno Street. The scene of the very crime we're investigating. Yes, that's right. A place from which I could emerge every morning at 8 as a squalid peddler and work in sepia tone. And transform myself every evening at 5 into a well-dressed man about town before returning home. That quickly became my daily routine. I was puzzled by the lack of furniture in the room. But that explains it. Well, why on earth didn't you just tell us in the first place? I have a wife, sir, and 2 sons. And without wishing to sound self-conceited, they regard me with some pride. I couldn't bring myself to disappoint them. So instead, you decided to conceal your occupations from them? Yes. I've made such a terrible mess of everything. Still, one thing doesn't add up. No matter how many tidbits of information you could sell to passing gentlemen, even at 6 apiece, you couldn't hope to match the salary you must have commanded as chief warder at the prison.
Very true. To have kept your family in comfort despite 10 years of somewhat misbegotten employment.
That was all thanks to Inspector Gregson.
What? Inspector Gregson? What on earth?
He turned me out as his femboy. It was some years after I had invented Boone and begun my other life as a street seller. He, the inspector, that is, recognized me one day.
Do you mean to say the victim was an acquaintance of yours?
I knew him from my time working at the prison. When he saw what I'd become, he was deeply troubled for me and my family. And from that day forward, he visited me on Fresno Street with increasingly regularity. Then one day, he asked me if I could carry out a secret assignment for him.
A secret? What was it?
Can't tell you, it's a secret. I was to impersonate the inspector.
What? Impersonate him?
We always met in that little room so the inspector could brief me.
Visit all the squads tomorrow and take a statement from the proprietors.
It was always something along those lines. Surveillance work, interviewing people. On those occasions, he would lend me his identification so people would believe who I was. My instructions were to make an impression, to let people know that Inspector Gregson had been at work. And for those services, he compensated me financially.
A scholar inspector willingly relinquished his identification to your care with intent to deceive? That, as I'm sure I need to not point out, is a very serious criminal offense.
But why? What was the point of you impersonating him? I truthfully do not know. All I can say is that the inspector warned me on numerous occasions.
Now remember, Vision, I need your soul and word. You don't blabber this to anyone, alright? Ever! Even if I end up a broker, please, you can't let anyone know, especially her ladyship. If her ladyship found out, it would be the end of me. She would own me in mind and body.
In time, he started to bring papers with him to the room as well as little pieces of red string that he would tack onto the board with thumbtacks. It became something of a second office for him.
So, in fact, the person who declared himself to be Inspector Gregson at the park on Lime Street was really...
Yes, it was me, acting on the inspector's orders. As usual, I removed my poon disguise, and then went as instructed to the park, armed with the inspector's identification book. It never occurred to me that the bruise on my neck might give me away. Well, it would seem this confession completely destroys the defense's case.
Explain yourself, Prosecutor Sogi.
My learned friend's assertion was as follows. The victim was killed at another location on the day before his corpse was discovered, at the hands of these two red-headed league men when they imprisoned the inspector. Ow. But no, that can't be. After all, it wasn't the inspector who went to the park that day. It was me. Oh, goodness! Finally, we have clarity. We had nothing to do with the murder of the inspector. And merci, Monsieur de la Défense, for proving it. What? Ah!
Order, order, order! Indeed, it would appear that we have reached a de facto conclusion of sorts. These witnesses had no involvement in the murder of the victim. As proven, somewhat ironically, by the defense. I hereby call an end to the cross-examination.
Hold it!
Pardon me, my lord, but with your permission, I would like to pose one further question to the witness. Kazuma.
What question, counsel?
It concerns the events of 10 years ago. I believe you would have been present at the very significant execution that was carried out at the time. 10 years ago? The execution of the professor, Genja Sogi. I want to know exactly what your involvement was. Oh. Answer me, man!
One moment, counsel. Is this relevant to the current case?
It is to me. Naturally. It is the prosecution's belief that this case and the events of 10 years ago are inextricably linked.
Does the defense occur, counsel?
Kazuma, you're not yourself. You're not as calm and collected as usual. Poor Kazuma-sama. No wonder he's acting this way. Mr. Vigil's memories of what happened 10 years ago would tell the tale of Genshin Sogi's last moments, his own father. I know, I do understand that. But even so... Kazuma, Prosecutor Sogi, do you genuinely believe that this question requires an answer in order to learn the truth behind Inspector Gregson's death? I need you to trust me. Please. Very well. Then the defense has no objection.
I see. In that case, you will answer the question, witness.
The truth is, I remember very little that time. You've forgotten? My father died because of you! I'm sorry to say, yes. As I said, I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago. But for some particular reason, my memory of the events leading up to that moment is extremely hazy. Does that not strike you as strange, Mr. Naruto? Sorry? Well, 10 years ago is a long time, but I've forgotten the reason why you left such an important job. Yes, you're right. And not only that, Mr. Vigil's claims contradict what we already know. The human spirit is a fragile thing. It's broken all too easily, which is why we have a tendency to wrap it up for protection. Sorry, the human spirit. I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean. When we experience pain and suffering that we feel unable to bear, we block it out, obliterate it from our memories, seal it away. But it never truly leaves us. If the seal is broken, the memories resurface. And when they do, that fragile spirit may finally be crushed. But I really don't.
Kazuma-sama.
But it must be crushed, and so be it, because the truth will not stay buried. It's coming out one way or another. Right. Now I understand. It's clear what his intentions are. He means to expose the truth at any cost. Perhaps if I pointed out the contradiction in what Mr. Vigil claimed earlier, it might cause some crucial memories to return to him. But should I? Should I present the evidence or not? I have no idea how this is going to go, but this is a court of law, and I have a duty to pursue the truth. Mr. Vigil, I'd like you to look at this. Evidence that clearly contradicts your version of the events.
Take that!
Just a few moments ago, you made the following statements. I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago.
Ah, well, yes.
In other words, you claim to have left the post of chief warden of your own volition.
Well, yes, of course. Why?
Tell me, do you remember seeing this document before?
No, I don't.
This is a dismissal notice ordering the immediate termination of a prison staff member's employment. A dismissal notice? And the name of the notice is yours, Mr. Vigil.
Why? What? It's mine.
So you didn't resign from the prison service at all. For some reason, you were dismissed as chief warden from Barclay.
No, there's been some mistake. I'm sure. I'm sure I tendered my resignation. This dismissal notice is nonsense. Isn't it?
If you were forcibly dismissed, there must have been some good reason. Clearly, you did something. Mr. Vigil, it's time to break the seal and have you remember. Yeah, I'm really liking this song. It really sets the atmosphere. According to the few remaining records, the final execution that you were supervised was on the 17th of June, 10 years ago. And on that day, something very serious took place at Barclay Prison.
The 17th of June?
Was that the professor's execution?
Professor?
As you were the chief warder at the time, it stands to reason that you would have been present throughout the proceedings.
It does sound familiar.
And yet, the execution never took place. The convict, ostentatiously executed earlier that day, later reemerged from his grave.
The convict came back to life.
In the cemetery in the middle of the night, there was a witness.
However, the witness claims that a moment after he saw the convict clambering out of his grave, a gunshot ran out over his shoulder, and the bullet pierced the professor's chest, killing him instantly. Those may have been the professor's actual last moments. Yes.
Seeing as you were in charge of overseeing executions at the time, you must have known the truth about what really happened. It's in your head, somewhere deep down. Well, Chief Warder Daily Vigil, I know there are memories in your head that can explain what happened on the 17th of June 10 years ago. And now it's time for you to drag them up. Mr. Vigil.
Yes, the whole prison. It was complete chaos. The prisoner escaped. He was killed in the cemetery. The shocking news rippled throughout Barclay like a hurricane.
What? What? Oh, order! Do you mean to say, Mr. Vigil, that your memories of the time have returned?
My head, it's like some floodgates have been opened. The images, the screams. Oh my goodness, we've broken it mentally. The papers, all the paperwork. There were reports, articles about a man who'd seen a ghost. Yes, Enoch Drebber.
But surely those reports were exaggerated.
There weren't. There were traces at the scene. Traces of what? In Lowgate Cemetery, at plot number 139. Blood. Lots of blood. That's where the man was buried, of course. Obviously, something terrible had happened there.
The depths of conspiracy and depravity from which this tale is emerging are quite staggering.
I reviewed the police records from that time extensively. A thorough investigation was conducted by Scotland Yard to ascertain how the convict managed to escape in the first place. And the conclusion reached by the investigating team was that a member of the prison staff must have been involved.
Are you suggesting that prison warder abetted the man's bid for freedom?
Yes, and I was suspected of doing it. Of using that mass murder's execution as a way to help him escape. You did what? I remember now. The hour of it all is coming back to me. One evening, a few days after the execution, some detectives came to the prison. I was called to the governor's office at the top of the watchtower. I'm sorry, Daly. This is a serious business, but I cannot help you know. As chief warder, you are responsible for overseeing the execution of four, eh? Well, it seems the fellas at Scotland Yard want to have a few wee words with you about it. You'd better pack your things, laddie. You're to attend in person. As soon as he told me that, my mind just went completely blank. I snapped. I jumped on him like a deranged monkey. I started punching the detectives. Their blood was everywhere. I threw them out the window. I threw everything out the window. And the next thing I knew, the professor, the most hated killer in our country's history. And I let him escape. I finished my life. It's over. I'm sorry, I can't do the scream seriously. Well, that's just another moment that I always have to brace myself from laughing at, because basically it's so abrupt to the shattering and then it has the screaming face. Yeah, this is what happens when you break those black psyche-locks.
Order! Bailiff, fetch a doctor at once! Course adjourned for today with immediate effect.
So, with Mr. Vigil's collapse, proceedings came to an abrupt end for the day. Once again overshadowed by the legacy of that notorious killer, appearing like a cursed ghost ship on a foggy ocean. Lord Van Zeeks, Mr. Vigil, Cosima, and Gregson. All of them bound by invisible chains anchored to the same wreckage in the murky depths of the past. But the miraculous light that had been trying to cut through the gloom and shine on those tragic events was playing on the edges of the truth at last.
To be continued. No, I'm not saying the progress just yet. 2nd of November, 3:38 p.m. Sholmes' Suite. I still can't quite believe what just happened. Well, one thing I can believe is I think that now would be a good time to end things off. Anyways, I really appreciate that you stuck around to watch this episode. You're a great viewer, and I hope you come back for the next one. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, share, wherever you want. And with that, I'll see you next time. Bye.